Episode 17, Protecting Mate. "Are you thinking about rejecting the girl?" Damon's wolf asked. "I need to protect her." "If you want to protect her, you need to keep her close, not reject her," his wolf said sternly. They had already talked about keeping Talia safe, but he remained far from finding a solution that would work. His wolf explained that without her wolf, Talia didn't feel the bond, so Damon's presence, or absence, didn't impact her. At most, Talia would feel attracted to him, and if Damon wanted to win her over, he would need to do it the human way, romance her until she fell in love with him. Assuming he succeeded, and she accepted him, it would not guarantee a lasting relationship. Without the mate bond, she could fall out of love at any time. Of course, if they went through the mating ceremony and he left his mark on her, the bond would form, but he would need to reach the point of the girl accepting him. What a mess. Damon had no idea how to court a girl, but he felt confident that no one should know that Talia was his mate. Damon knew that Alpha Edward intended to use Marcy to manipulate him, and Alpha Edward would have no qualms about using a lowly Omega against Damon. He imagined that they would imprison Talia and blackmail Damon, and probably harm her as well. He wouldn't allow it. It all went in circles, with every next scenario growing grimmer, and Damon felt sick of it. Rejecting her or not, he had to ensure that Talia received better treatment. Was she the only Omega to get a beating in the Red Moon Pack? Probably not. After breakfast, Damon met with Alpha Edward in his office. Damon thought that his provocations from yesterday would suffice for Alpha Edward to lose his temper and reveal some information, but Damon realized that he had underestimated Alpha Edward's patience. All Alpha Edward said was, "I hope that if you need assistance of any kind, you will turn to me, and you won't mind if I do the same." Alpha Edward didn't mention reaching out to Damon or to the Dark Howler's pack, which left Damon wondering about Alpha Edward's plan. Damon gave up on getting something directly from Alpha Edward. The old guy proved too crafty. And Damon hoped that Maya and Caden had found something useful because he never excelled at this scheming business. Scheming aside, Damon had a serious topic to discuss. Damon cleared his throat seriously. "Alpha Edward, I wonder if you are aware of the treatment your Omegas receive." Alpha Edward looked visibly confused. "Can you elaborate on that?" "Do they get paid, fed, treated well?" The old man frowned while turning defensive. He didn't like that Damon asked about the internal workings in his pack. It seemed no one's business, but he still responded. "I prefer strong warriors, but that doesn't mean I'm mistreating others. All Omegas have accommodation, 3 meals a day. Actually, they have access to the kitchen and storage in common buildings, and they can make their own food whenever they feel hungry. We don't bother with those, but I can assure you that no one goes hungry. If you want to know more about the compensation for their work, you can ask my beta. I'm not clear what you mean about treating them well, but when they mess up, related to their duties, we make them run laps or do push-ups. It's good for their bodies. Is that what you would classify as bad treatment?" "No," Damon responded. "But when I see an Omega looking well, and a few hours later that same girl appears all bruised up with a purple handprint on her neck, I grow worried." More than worried, enraged. Alpha Edward paused. "Maybe they had some dispute among themselves." Damon scrutinized the old man while wondering if he truly remained ignorant or just acted well. Whichever it was, Damon wanted to make sure Alpha Edward knew Damon wasn't talking randomly. "Let's say I believe you, and you have no idea about the mistreatment that happens under your roof. As an outsider, I don't want to meddle, so I suggest you talk to your daughter." "Marcy?" Damon narrowed his eyes at Alpha Edward. "Luna should watch over pack members and use soft skills to deal with challenges. Beating up my people will not be tolerated." Alpha Edward looked visibly displeased. His main chip in pushing Marcy as Damon's Luna was that Marcy seemed flawless. And if Damon found dirt on Marcy in one day that he stayed here, who knew what else he could find? Alpha Edward didn't know that Marcy had harmed Talia, but he knew that Damon wouldn't make up stuff like this. Damon's words sounded too specific to be random. The old guy had collected intel on Damon for some time, and he knew this tactic. Damon would find a trait that clashed with the definition of a good Luna and blow it out of proportion. This was how Damon discredited many other women, and Alpha Edward had a bad premonition. Alpha Edward nodded solemnly. "I will talk to Marcy about this." Damon smirked. "I'm counting on it." Alpha Edward summoned Marcy to his study after Damon left. "How is your relationship with Damon?" Marcy had an idea that her father would ask about Damon, and she felt ready for this. "We are getting along well." She had no intention to say that Damon had chased her out of his room last night. "Do you think he has a good opinion of you? Did he invite you on a date? When will you move to the Dark Howler's pack? Did you discuss anything about your relationship and how things will work out once he leaves from here? Or will you go with him?" Alpha Edward rained questions on her without giving Marcy a chance to respond. Alpha Damon had doubts if I could be his Luna, and I assured him how I'm perfect for the task. He seemed happy to hear that I'm proficient in handling the household, pack members, and finances. Alpha Edward didn't feel happy with this response, and he could see that Marcy either avoided something or she and Damon hadn't reached far. He decided to probe into the matter that bothered him. "And how do you handle pack members?" Marcy didn't understand. "I talk to them, and I'm approachable. I listen, and then you beat them up?" Alpha Edward interrupted Marcy. Marcy frowned. "No, I don't beat them up." "Really? Alpha Damon thinks otherwise." His voice rose. "He thinks that you beat them up black and blue and even choke them to the point of leaving handprints on their necks." Marcy paled. Why did her father sound angry? He's the one who says Omegas are a useless burden. Marcy didn't consider herself a violent person, but what seemed wrong with teaching offenders a lesson? And who cared if one Omega got hurt? She wanted to deny it, but the fury in her father's eyes told her that he already knew what she did in the attic on the previous day. Lying would only make things worse. "It's not as bad as it sounds, Daddy." Marcy spoke weakly. "And how is it?" "She barged into the room, and I had to teach her a lesson." Alpha Edward closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths to calm his nerves. "You taught an Omega a lesson by beating her because she forgot to knock?" Marcy wanted to say that it wasn't about knocking, but about the Omega seeing Marcy in a compromising position with Damon. But there was no way she would say that in front of her father. "What were you thinking?" Alpha Edward said in a strained voice as he struggled to contain his desire to give her a good scolding. "Even if you want to discipline others, you don't do that when we have guests. And you definitely don't do that when the guest in question is an alpha you are trying to impress as his future Luna."